coming to you from the historic Hart Building in Marysville, California, in Studio 93, in the Tank with Fish, with your host, Bob Fischetti.
Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in. Again, it's another episode of In the Tank with Fish and Kelly. And we had a great opportunity to meet a gentleman last show that is going to run the Ironman. And I just want to put this up. He told us that when he's done with that he will actually come back, be on the air with us and tell us about the experience. My concern is that we may have him and Kelly back at the same time.
Just depends. I got to look at my training calendar.
I'll start calling you fearless. I mean, it's like, so we got a great guest going to be coming in today. Yes. Tim.
Let me handle this.
Would you do that? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Styczenski.
There you go. We got it. So he'll be coming in, and we're going to find out, because you and I were talking about somebody that knows wine has to go through classes or something to be called a sommelier.
Yes.
And Tim is going to explain to us what happens with coffee.
Yeah.
You're not just a coffee aficionado.
No, there's an actual
I'm amazed
word
I even knew that word.
I know, that was impressive.
That's a big word for me, right? You know? So things been going good.
Yeah.
Things are going good. The bread making is going good. And
yeah, bread making is awesome. Kids are awesome. Life is good. How about you?
Well, I think I think you need to be on one of the floors here where we are, right? Now, listen before you.
I was going to say you're trying to get scones, but go ahead. I'll hear you out on this.
Well, the scones was on the list, right? But I'm just thinking, can you imagine if you had an oven downstairs? Mm-hmm. What that would do to every floor in this building?
The drifting smell of bread. I'm not sure everyone would be very productive.
Everybody be standing at the door. Is it done yet?
Yeah. Can we come in? Is it time? No, because the torturous thing about bread is that you wait 2 hours to cut into it.
What?
Yeah.
If you want
to save the rest of your loaf.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like they say you got to rest meat. And I'm like, it ain't resting. I'm killing it right now.
It's got to finish out. But I know. It's torture.
There's some things I've been really grateful to learn from you.
That was not one of them.
That was not the one.
We're going to cut that part out.
Listen, we had a bread machine at home. Our whole family would literally be standing around with butter and a knife, just waiting.
Waiting
the minute
for
it was done, hot, cut into. So hot bread. That's actually your.
Well, if you're going to finish the loaf, it's one thing, but otherwise, like the bread actually needs to finish cooking and cool, and then otherwise you cut into it and it's gummy. That's the difference.
I don't like gummy bread.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Then you got to let it rest for a little bit. It needs a little nap after it's baked. Not unlike you. A nap after you've been in the sun for the day.
Exactly. So when we get our guest in here, we're going to ask him, do you pair coffee with different breads? Oh. Scones, cinnamon rolls. What is there a pairing? Because there is in wine.
No.
Well, we're going to find out.
We'll find out. If anyone knows, it's Tim. Because he is definitely the expert.
And if he doesn't know, he's going to lose his rating.
His credibility, his rating. Doubtful. I don't think he could lose it if we tried. But that will just mean we'll need to have him back on and have a sampling of scones and bread with coffee.
I like the way you think.
I know. I knew you'd be in on that one. I didn't even run it by you first. I just executive decisioned that one.
So we're going to be right back. We got to get the cups.
Okay, can I just say that Fish gets a mug and I get a paper cup? We're going to work on fixing this.
Yeah. We need to get you a mug. But we're going to be right back within the Tank with Fish and Kelly. We're going to be talking to Tim
Styczynski.
About coffee, all things coffee. And if you've never met him, this is going to be a real treat for you. So come right back.
Hi, my name is Denise Landis, and I am the owner of Edible Memories Bakery here on 3rd Street in downtown Marysville. We facilitated the market every Thursday on 3rd. We have food trucks, vendors, and live music every Thursday from 3 to 7:30 here on the corner of 3rd and D Street in downtown historic Marysville. Our vision was to bring an atmosphere of community, and that takes you coming out and joining in the fun with us. We hope to see you here.
Welcome back. We are with one of my favorite humans in the Yuba Sutter area, and that is Tim Styczenski with Bridge Coffee Company. Good morning.
Good morning. Oh, so thankful and grateful to be here with you guys.
We are so excited to have you here, and obviously we've chatted before. Have you two chatted before?
Yeah, we chatted, and then a gal that went to the church, her name's Kelly.
Yeah.
The singer. And she said, I don't know how I was ended up talking to her. She said, I'm going over and taking a class on coffee. I said, there's a class on coffee? She said, oh, Fish, come go with me. I ended up in Tim's class. I was just like blown away. I was like, I didn't realize I just thought you just drank it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize everything that was behind it. And that's been years ago. You used to hold classes on, that's how I found out about if coffee sits too long, the acidity changes, all these things. And you're like, who knew?
Yeah.
I just thought you went to McDonald's and got a cup and drank it, right?
I really want to resurrect that locally. And I am teaching classes on coffee, but I have taken a new role in that. I have the distinct honor of being the head roaster for the UC Davis Coffee Science Center. The Coffee Center is the first of its kind in the world for a multidisciplinary approach to coffee education and research.
That's so amazing. So my brain goes, what are they teaching about
I'm thinking,
coffee?
can you get a degree in coffee?
Yeah.
So one of the professors, Professor Irwin, his doctorate is in post-harvest processing, and his study was on water chestnuts, in that you could do that study in water chestnuts before you could in coffee, and coffee sells probably a little bit more than water chestnuts.
Yeah.
And that it is the second largest traded commodity on the planet to oil. That's so much money around something that has had so little research is now really, really special. And there's a lot to study.
Yeah, a huge amount. So I want to go a little bit backwards.
Sure.
In that, I know, but I think it's super important for other people to know where you get your coffee from.
Oh, well, actually, the people who grow coffee are amazing families. And typically for coffee, there's 25 million producers around the globe for all of coffee. And specialty coffee is only 5% of what's produced. And the commodity of coffee, that trading of coffee, really kind of drives prices down. And so it keeps those producers at a low threshold of income. And one of the great things about specialty coffee is that it recognizes the producer and the work the producer does with that coffee, and that they're rewarded both for extra revenue and that we get to showcase it. So like this coffee that I brought today is from Chiapas in Mexico, and this is a woman-owned co-op of farms in Chiapas that have grown this coffee, and that we were able to pay a great price for coffee. That this is really special coffee. Like, it's incredibly tasty. The notes that I get out of it are very herbaceous and spicy, and like some forestness to it. It's got plus a nice lemony acidity to it.
I thought the same thing.
I thought earthy. If I'm gonna be like honest,
So,
in a good way.
yeah, earthy in a good way.
Yeah.
So when we were
Not think lemon, by the way.
when we were cupping this coffee, actually one of the notes we got that's we didn't put on the bag, but it's there, is cannabis. And that like that herbaceous, don't want to get too deep into describing weed, but I mean that kind of like flowery green smell is something I smelled in this coffee too.
Interesting.
So you have to pick particular coffees that you sell, right? So you pick from a certain family. I remember one time you told me that you had known a family, and I want to say Costa Rica, but I might be wrong.
El Salvador,
right? And that you had been consistently buying from them, and actually got to know them. And
yes,
are they still part of the ones that you connect with?
Yeah, I actually just received green coffee from their futures shipment. One of the things now as a Q grader, like I can actually dive deeper into those samples that I'm getting from the coffee and grading them and give them some real valuable feedback for the coffee. But that family has been growing coffee for 6 generations.
Wow.
And for Jennifer and I's 25th anniversary, our plan was to go and visit the farm for our anniversary. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, we weren't able to make that trip, but we're gonna make it down there to visit them.
So you just brought up the magical.
I was totally hoping you would.
Did he bring it?
Yeah, he did.
You bring it?
Oh, 93Q.
Yeah, 90 sommelier, which is actually called, what is it?
It's called a Q grader. So I am a licensed Q grader, and in the United States, there's fewer than 600 Q graders.
So is that like a magic number? I mean, how many people are in America? So Q grader, the process must be either difficult or the whole thing of it being a Q grader is new.
It is incredibly difficult. Okay. In fact, it was a 20-year goal of mine that I had wanted to do. And it is relatively new, considering that sommeliers and cicerones have been around for centuries, 1800s for sommeliers. And so for Q grading, it is something that is relatively new, decades in the work, but it is incredibly difficult. And many of the Q graders that are in the world, so there's less than 8,000 around the globe, they will hold a position for a larger company. And one of my hopes with utilizing being a licensed Q grader was to advocate for those 25 million farmers instead of trying to push price down, to celebrate and elevate the quality of what they do.
So I have to ask, is it hard for you to say, I have a favorite coffee or a coffee from a favorite? I mean, because you've tasted probably hundreds and hundreds of different ones, and you've obviously created things within the roasting process that you do, right, that are really maybe a signature flavor with that bean, however you do that. And so is there one that Tim can say that this is absolutely the coffee, when I get up in the morning, this is what I want?
Well, I actually did the math a few weeks ago. And from 1997, when I started roasting coffee, I have done something more than 25,000 roasts of coffee.
Wow.
And so that I have not cupped every single one of those roasts. I had a lot of failures, particularly early on. Don't use a sheet pan in your oven. It doesn't really work.
Oh, is that
a wok works great, but it makes a ton of smoke and chaff, and the spouse doesn't like that. And so, I mean, for me, like a favorite cup of coffee is a couple of different things. One is that the coffee that we serve every day at Bridge is called Top Transom. It's our signature blend, and it's got Colombian, Sumatra, and Ethiopian coffees in there. And the Colombian is caramely and citrusy, and the Sumatran is very chocolatey, and the Ethiopian is sweet and fruit forward. And so as a blend, it's very balanced, and it's something I really want to drink every day. That's how we put that coffee together and that blend. But if I were to have like a dessert, like something special, something that I would want to do for a special occasion, Ethiopia as a region or as an origin is my favorite. I've also had some really expensive coffees that were not my favorite. They were very, very pricey, thousands of dollars, but not for a pound, thousands of dollars for a pound. But very floral, like hibiscus or tea-like flowery floral teas, and that's not one of my favorite notes. I appreciate it, and the quality of it, but it's not my favorite.
Do you ever order coffee when you go out?
Oh.
Have you ever drank like fast food coffee?
Oh, yeah.
And
Fish is
graded
dying
it?
to know if you've had McDonald's coffee, I think.
I thought McDonald's coffee was terrible. I mean, it really, and then they changed it, and it actually was pretty good. But there for a while, it's like I just couldn't drink it. It was just terrible.
I love coffee. So, and I fell in love with coffee actually before I knew about coffee. And I was 19 years old in EMT, working on ambulances, and we were doing 24-hour shifts. And at shift change, we would meet at a cafe, at a diner, and it was just diner coffee, and it would bring people together and I learned how to be an adult. You know, I grew up around this cup of coffee here in. My partners share their stories and life and experiences, and that I became a grown man
During
at that time. And so I fell in love with coffee then. And this was early 90s, and I had already had like some Starbucks coffee and lattes and some espresso-based drinks. But then I had a cup in 1993 that I can remember like it was yesterday.
Wow.
That it was such an indelible memory for me. I can remember the subway tile on the wall. I can remember the espresso machine, the line of people, the barista, and standing in the corner of the cafe as I drank this little Demitasse. And I had never ordered a straight espresso, but this place had a reputation. I was very fortunate to go to Stanford for my paramedic education, and that cup was so delicious. It was, and I was just blown away. And so then that's kind of what started me on my obsessive, passionate.
Have you been able to replicate that?
Probably. That's such a great memory. I can't replicate that memory.
Right.
My job now, I feel, is to create that memory for somebody else that will come into the shop or have coffee like I've had. And like being at the farmer's market, I love it because when I was there at the farmer's market and I gave a sample to somebody that I was serving coffee to, that they would have like a change in complexion that they wouldn't control. It's like, wait, what? This is a cup of coffee that tastes like a mango or a papaya or a blueberry. And so I love seeing that kind of joy in people's face.
So is that kind of what you're teaching now at UC Davis? Because is that what, I guess I'm curious, like what is that program teaching?
Are you thinking about taking the class? I'm just wondering.
I am training for an Ironman now. I don't have time for coffee classes. Just kidding.
Well, you know, athletes need fuel. So.
Yeah, totally.
There you go.
Yes, it is. The coffee class is actually ran from the College of Engineering, and that it's a science class that the food sciences and ag sciences and the chem scientists and even any one of the College of Engineering people can take that class, and it became the most popular class on campus. It's just 2,000 students that are taking this coffee class every year, and it's called the design of coffee. And so, like,
that's so cool.
This diagram is kind of like all of the stages and phases of coffee production, and that there's a lot of like chemistry and physics and and also sensory science, which is sensory science is becoming more and more aware to the coffee community. As a Q grader, what I do in sensory science is just like a tip. There's so much depth to that. And the students, they get green coffee. They get incredibly good green coffee. And they're freshmen, sophomore, just out of high school, taking these classes and roasting it themselves, measuring all of the energy use that they have, grinding the coffee, brewing it, measuring all of the physics and chemistry and things that are going on with that. And so the design of coffee class was so popular that helped spur the movement to build the coffee center.
So tell us about this, because there is now a coffee center.
There is, and it's we had our grand opening last Friday, a week ago Friday, and the that place is so well laid out. So we have a green coffee lab. So when green coffee comes in raw, it has to be stored in good conditions to maintain its longevity. So there's a lab to help facilitate that. Then the next room over is the roastery, and we've got 4 brand new, beautiful, custom designed ProBat roasting machines. And in fact,
you didn't bring over, is it Brigitte? Who's your...
Oh, Bridget is...
Bridget?
Yeah.
You didn't bring over your Bridge coffee roaster as an initiation over...
No.
At the college? She's got to stay.
She's my baby.
Yeah.
So that is an incredible roaster. But the machines that we got from ProBat have been able to do some wonderful results. The horsepower to weight ratio, it's a hot rod. So
yeah.
I can do a lot of things. So this is from Scientific Reports, my very first co-authored published paper.
Whoa.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so submitted.
I know enough about education to know that's huge.
Yeah, so
that is a huge deal. When you're published in what you do, that's huge.
Yeah, so the authors, Laudia Anoke Benpa, I thought my last name was hard, and Timothy Styczenski, the second listed author. And so in this paper, there's this particular page that is, this is roasting profiles. And if you were to show this to another roaster, they would look at this and say, you're crazy. And I am a little bit, a little on the obsessive side.
Most geniuses are, it's okay.
Well, I don't know about that. We know that how you change things within the roaster will change the cup character. Like you could roast the coffee dark, and that's a cup character. But if you roast the coffee like this, and you're looking for tasting notes that coffee might have, you can really modulate the sensory experience. So, like if it's thin or thicker, heavier feeling, mouthfeel, more acidic, more sweet, sour to bitter, all of those things can be modulated in the roasting profile. And so like this roasting profiles, we knew it happened, but we didn't know why. And so this kinetics of coffee, there's going to be probably 7 papers that we're going to publish from this one study. So 13,000 samples that are being tested. This particular one was on titratable acidity, and there had never been an ability to have the resources like the Coffee Center has to be able to analyze the chemical compositions of the roasting process as it was happening in a production machine. And so like one of the findings, and this is like the level of titratable acidity that's in the coffee, and you see that peak, and the peak is right at an area of first crack, which is the same kind of like temperature that happens for the coffee and the buildup of the gases, and the same thing that happens in popcorn happens in coffee, that it pops. And it found that at that time it was at that peak, and the baseline acidity of the green coffee has a higher pH, so less acidic than the roasted coffee. And that as the coffee is being roasted and going through Maillard reactions and caramelization, it's actually the changes of the physical character of the coffee is making it more acidic, and that it was measured. So titratable acidity measures every acid, not just pH. pH will measure strong acids, and so the other papers will dive deeper into what acids are being created. Chlorogenic acids and organic acids. Chlorogenic acids being something important because they know that chlorogenic acids, quality chlorogenic acids are helpful, cancer fighting.
I was just going to ask you the health
So
implications
I've heard of that,
of it.
that actually, years ago, I heard that breathing the coffee, breathing over the cup, that was cancer preventive, the aroma. Because it's actually, there's something in the aroma. It's not just the smell. It's particles. And so I'd heard that, and I thought that can't be true. And then you just said that there are those principles that are in there. I did want to ask you, though, Tim, when we think of wine, some people say, like, I like red wine, or I like white wine, and then it gets even more detailed than that. And is it really the same with coffee? I will drink certain coffees and I'll go, nah, it's not me. And then I think, well, is it as simple as red and white wine, dark and light roast, right? Is it that simple? I do know that acidity, because you bring that up, like, I don't really like that. I am not fond of a coffee that's got heavy acidity in it. And so how does that work if somebody is saying, I'm trying to find the coffee that, works for me? How do I address that, right? Dark, light, how do I do that?
Yeah. Well, you actually asked a couple of great questions in that. And so one of them is like, every coffee is different. And in coffee, there's just like the same changes, or not changes, but differences in the coffee varietals that you would see in wine, or even see in beer with different hops. So like hops, for Cascade hops versus Citra hops, they have very different characters to them. Chardonnay versus a Merlot have very, very different flavors for those grapes. And the cherries, the raw coffee plant that grows the fruit, we call them cherries. And the fruit from that tastes like a sweet cranberry, and it's delicious. But it starts to ferment. As soon as you pick it off, it starts to ferment right away. So it's very difficult to use. But a Bourbon grown in El Salvador from the Menya family versus a Bourbon grown in, say, Kenya, Africa, will taste different. So even a Chardonnay grape grown in Napa Valley versus one grown in New Zealand will change too. So like at Bridge Coffee Company, what we offer is 5 different varietals all the time. So May, we're serving up this limited edition Mexico, but I always have coffee from Colombia, from Ethiopia, from Brazil, El Salvador, and Sumatra. And so those 5 countries have very different flavor profiles. And so then when a customer comes in the door and they say, well, I like this particular kind of coffee, it's like, okay, we'll give you a sample of this and a sample of this, and then also suggest something else for you to try.
You need like a coffee flight is what you need to really just narrow down exactly what you like.
Well, I just, I'm one of those guys, I know what I like. I can actually go to a restaurant, and the coffee in a particular restaurant, I'll just really like it, right? It's really good coffee. But, and sometimes I feel like saying, well, what is this? Where did you buy this, right? But I also know that making it at home may not be the same as the process they use, because when I went to your class, that was part of it, the process in actually brewing the coffee. And I have been on your website, and I understand you are not fond of Kruig's. Whatever. You are not a K-Cup fan.
No, mostly because Well, mostly because of the waste. I think that it's an important part of like just the pollution of those things.
The pods.
And I actually have had some of the reps from the companies that are doing compostable pods come to me. The reusable cups just can't get enough coffee in there for a cup.
Wow.
And the machine doesn't have enough oomph because the coffee that I roast is really light. And that was part of the other great question that you asked about likes and dislikes on coffee. And so I have had a company from Oregon that it has a really precise grinding method and has been able to expand the volume of coffee in the cup and with a compostable K-cup. And so I did find a method of being able to do a K-cup. Now, bridge at our current volume, it's not really a smart market move for us to offering K-cups because I just don't have the volume to do that. But now that I have a method of being able to produce a K-cup that I like, that actually highlights the cup character, it's something that could happen in the future.
Well, I asked because, we live in a world of convenience. Right, so I have a guest coming in, and we got Greg out there. I noticed you didn't knock it off the stand; you left it there. But anyway, but it's like it's a single cup thing.
Yeah.
Well, my son was telling me they have a little. I think it's called a coffee press or something, where it's a single cup. You make one cup out of it, and so I never even thought about what you just said about the waste. Right, that what's left, that little cup that you throw away, and But don't you think it's more convenience than anything else that people would use those?
Well, you guys do. Do you guys still do the coffee bags, those single serve?
It's the same challenge with the market and having the customer base. But yeah, there is a company called Steeped that's developed a tea bag, so you could use your Keurig machine to brew hot water just as a kettle, and then you could drop one of those tea bags in there.
Oh,
that came out really well. The AeroPress is I think every home should have an AeroPress. Every office should have an AeroPress. They're wonderful. For $40, you can get the best cup of coffee you've ever had in your life from one of those. You just have to have a grinder with it. There is some small, like 6 to 8 cup brewers that have built-in grinders that have single cup modes in them. You start getting into $400, $500, $600 range. Then you're getting into like the $1,500 to $2,500 espresso machines that you can do the push button for a single serve cup of coffee.
there's not going to be one of those.
No, Fish just needs an AeroPress. We'll get him an AeroPress. He'll be fine. We have one. They're perfect.
Perhaps we can find a sponsor.
Yeah.
A sponsor to do that.
Back to a point that I really would love to share. You talked about light, medium, and dark.
Yeah.
And that is a really difficult question for me. It's a great question, but it's a very difficult question for me because my darkest coffee that I produce or roast is lighter than the blonde roast from Starbucks. And so like their light roast is darker than my darkest roast. And so
Is that preference, Tim?
partly, but that for me, like I love smoked salmon. I love salmon sashimi. I love baked salmon piccata from Fernando's.
Oh yeah. Now you're speaking my language.
But if I'm going to have smoked salmon, I want to taste salmon. I don't want to overdo it with the smoke.
Yes.
Smoke should complement the salmon, not overpower it. And for me, it's the same thing. When you add a roast character to the coffee, it should complement the coffee that you're roasting. Like I would never do that to this coffee because it would just destroy all the subtleties of the coffee. It would create something different that might not be bad, but for green coffee that I paid as much as I did for celebrate this farm, I would want to showcase the work that they've done. They've spent all year long with the plants, and for me, I only have it for less than 15 minutes. Yeah. And don't screw it up. I want to do it.
But I feel like you guys Bridge itself is changing. In my mind, when I met you, Bridge itself is changing the way that coffee is done and the way that coffee is experienced. I think too, in a world where we are all about convenience, I think to go into a coffee shop that not only is supporting these smaller farms with fair trade, but then you really do. I mean, we have similarities in that we both have a first responder background, but you come in and you it's a family feeling in Bridge Coffee. You come in, I mean, it's good morning. If they don't know your name, they will. You could ask Barbie what her drink of the day or week is, and she'll tell you what her favorite is. And, your crew knows you when you come in, but you also, it's like love in a cup. I don't know any other way to put it, but it really is. It's like you go in and you get such a different experience than, I'm not going to say their name, but going into a coffee place with a green logo where you are another number or cup, if you will. It's a different experience to support a small local roaster that is doing amazing things. I think not just locally, but I think, worldwide, if you're looking at where you're getting your beans from.
I sure appreciate the compliments. That's very kind. And my team, the staff are just rock stars. They really are an amazing group of people, and I love them dearly. A couple of them I have particular fondness for. My son, who helps manage the Clark Avenue location, my daughter that helps manage the New Earth Market location. But all of them are family. And when we have staff meetings, they're family meetings. And our even in our mission, that connecting community and the values of love, dignity, and respect, that I want them to love their job. And it's not a job for everybody. Being a barista is not everyone's cup of coffee, but the experience that I've had with the crews over the years, that it's first. I tell people when they get hired, it's like, this is one of your first jobs, or it is their first job, not their last job. I want the next employer to thank me, not curse me. And that they have a wonderful experience at Bridge. Seeing some of my past employees go off to do their lifelong goals. The doctor, Trevor. And folks like that I had that moment in their life to spend time with. It's great.
Where do you guys roast? I mean, I know where you roast, but you locally roast.
We do in Marysville. So we have the old firehouse on 3rd Street, 160-year-old beautiful brick building. Just
amazing building.
It is so wonderful. It's also home. I live upstairs. The fire pole is gone. I have to walk down a flight of stairs to get to work.
What a bummer.
I know.
Man, my commute is so much longer. But it is just a really special place. It's not open to the public. At some point, I would really love to have a cafe there, and that it would be an experience for the customers. Like, we would do flights of coffee, that we would actually serve up this Mexican coffee as an espresso, as a drip coffee, and as a cold brew. And you could taste the difference of the brewing methods. Yeah, stuff like that.
So I have to ask, since Kelly is Little Miss Sourdough, right? You know, did they think of coffee? You mentioned dessert, and you said, well, you know, so like if I'm just having a cup of coffee, but then you said if I'm having dessert, and you said something else. Is there truly a pairing? Like if Kelly made a cinnamon roll, if Kelly made one and like offered it to me, like if, you know, after she made one, it
if I brought you a cinnamon roll, I'm tracking. Yeah, I got it.
No, but is it that way with coffee? Because
Absolutely.
you mentioned the particular flavors that come out of coffee. So how does that work? How would one know? I mean, do we have to call Tim? You get on speed dial. I'm having a cinnamon roll. What should I have?
What do I pair this with?
Yeah.
Well, I would recommend one of the more acidic coffees, actually, with a cinnamon roll. But I would not recommend one of the acidic coffees with, say, chocolate chip, anything with chocolate in it. I would steer you towards more of the lower acidic coffees like Sumatra. That's a better pairing for it, because the acidity and bitterness that's already in the chocolate competes with the acidity in the coffee. Now, if you think about like your favorite latte, what do you want to put into your latte? So like at our shops, we make our own syrups in-house. And so our hazelnut is from fresh hazelnut extract. Our vanilla is actually scraping beans out of vanilla beans and making the syrups. And so like one of our favorites is cascara, and that's the fruit from the coffee that's been dried and creates this like really rich fig-like and so like thinking about some of the things that you might like in a latte. So like having figs and coffee, that's such a great pairing.
I would have never thought.
No, yeah.
I would have to make a fig scone.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Figgy pudding.
Oh, I got goosebumps. Yeah.
It'll happen.
The Ethiopian that's very blueberry forward tastes so great as an espresso over ice cream.
What is
Vanilla ice cream with a blueberry. Yeah, it's an affogato.
Affogato. That's what it is.
Now,
I see that in our summer feature because it was already like 90 this week.
Yeah. So you mentioned restaurants and restaurant coffee, and like for me, I do love coffee. I have very low expectations when I go someplace for a cup of coffee. Yeah. And so that I can just enjoy it. When you go to a restaurant, and I love talking with chefs because I get to help them with their customer experience. And when I talk to a chef and I mention, it's like, okay, you have somebody who's probably had several glasses of wine because they've paired it well with the meal, but the last thing that they have before they head home is a cup of coffee, right? And that having a great cup of coffee to cap that experience for the last thing that they remember for the drive home, you know, that's a celebration.
Yeah.
Are chefs generally trained in that, Tim? I mean, do they know, right? Because the chef picks everything, right? What the meals and how they're prepared. And so do they generally think about coffee as part of that?
No, and that's actually really surprising to me. They go with what they know. And so that when you do have that opportunity to speak with them about like that experience, and that you can talk about it in pairing, that they'll steer away from a popular brand and go with something that's special for their menu.
Yeah. Well, I have to be honest. I started drinking coffee when I was a kid. And my mom and dad both worked. And so when they'd leave, there'd be coffee in the pot, and I knew how to make toast.
Yeah.
And my comfort breakfast is coffee and toast.
Yeah.
And I don't even care if there's jelly. I mean, it does have to be butter, not just toasted bread. And so I've always, coffee's been that way. And then I worked retail for a while. And when I did, I drank way too much coffee. I lived off coffee. So it wasn't anymore the flavor. It was, I'm just staying awake, I'm keeping moving. It was truly the caffeine. And so I've kind of been on both ends of the spectrum. And now, usually I'll have one, if I have 2 cups of coffee a day, I've had a lot of coffee for me. I'm just kind of one. And I love that smell. Like when I get the coffee in the morning, I'll always just, I'll enjoy. Oh, this smells really good.
It does. I totally was familiar.
Whoa, that was kind of a shocker there. I didn't expect that. Yeah, see, I love that smell, and I can remember getting up in the morning, and there were, sights and sounds, but there was the smell.
Have the nicest compliments for me. I really appreciate it.
So I remember the smell of the coffee, and it was at that time they used percolators, so you could hear the coffee.
Oh yeah.
And I always remember the sound. To this day, if I put sugar or cream or whatever, I can remember the sound of the spoon hitting the cup. Yeah. And that's a pleasant sound to me, that stirring. That's why I don't really like stirring sticks and stuff. Really, little plastic.
It's a full sensory experience, right?
Yeah,
which is part of what you were talking about with UC Davis. It's that sensory experience that goes along with it.
And you said that when Kelly said, when she was talking about going to Bridge Coffee, she said it's the experience. You didn't define it as like I'm getting a cup of coffee. It was like the experience. And I've been in there, and she's right. It's right around the corner from my house. Unfortunately, you're not open at 4:30.
No, we're not. But if you want coffee at your house, we can deliver it to you. We do have a coffee bean subscription service that we can send coffee, and we have about 150 subscribers in the community that we weekly go out and drive around in the coffee wagon and drop off coffee on people's doorsteps.
So if we could get it to work, they'd get their bag of coffee and 2 loaves of sourdough.
Yes, heaven.
Coffee and toast.
That is coffee.
It's like, come on, I'll make toast out of that.
Yeah.
Right? So, Tim, is there anything that in what we've been talking about and your progression in this whole thing with coffee, you start getting into the science of it. That's really what's happened to you. Is it still, does Tim still do this? With all that you know, right? You know what I'm saying, Kelly? Yeah. It's like with all that you know, do you still do that? Do you still get that?
Absolutely. In fact, more so. It's one of the things that I've just really, truly loved about coffee is that when I got into the business of coffee, I was worried that I would lose that. And I actually had that experience in the past with starting a business around photography, starting a business around computer building and like what were hobbies. I lost that joy for them because of the pressures of the business. And so I was worried about it with coffee, and it was so much more of a blessed experience. Just to quickly touch on, like, Bridge Coffee to me means our mission is connecting community, but it's a reminder of my faith of where I am and where God wants me to be, and that I get to touch people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, there is something way beyond what we do when it comes to people. And I appreciated what you said about they're not employees, they're family. I've always felt that way. I always felt like when I'm around people, it's like I want to get close. I don't want to be. Of course, Kelly was easy for me. We like one interview, we're like old pals. Hey, how
we're
you
besties now.
Yeah, it's like, and I do think there are people like that, in your life. But I don't know what it'd be like to have a life that you I couldn't be a hermit. I couldn't. And you had mentioned when you were with the EMTs that, you went in and you were sharing, the coffee became part of the I'm sharing life experience. And I really, again, I'm being honest here, man, I just go grab a cup of coffee in the morning. I'm not sharing life. It's at a drive-through, right? You know what I mean? I'm having that coffee. But when you literally stop and sit down with people and enjoy something like this, I don't know what this is, but I'm telling you right now, you need to go to Bridge. Oh, not that. That's 93 kilos. And ask him, what is that? I want that,
Well, it's only available for another A few days. In June, we'll switch it up to another.
It'll
Do you
still be
have
good.
bags for sale at?
For only a few more days. So
I will be
you'll have
going there after here. Would you like a bag, sir?
Well, yeah, we'll circle back to Mexico next May.
Wow.
Now that I'm working at UC Davis and I have that privilege, and I'm working with like Claudia, who's PhD candidate in ag sciences, and a couple of computer science guys who happen to be Q graders. They're students that are computer science students or Q graders, and that I'm learning from them. And diving into this science of coffee. So those computer science guys, this is Roast Pick, and Roast Pick is one of the projects that we're working on at UC Davis. And this sheet is a calibrated sheet, and those kids and the coffee center director, Dr. Ristenpart, they asked, why can't we just take a photo with our camera on our cell phone and get a result about the color of the coffee? Because light, medium, and dark, that language is, what if we had a number? What if people knew that if your score was 32, that's what you liked.
Oh.
Like IBU. And
I like it.
Like
Helpful for you.
yeah, like IBU in beer. So if you know you're a 90, like a bitter stank beer, or an 11 smooth lager fan. So like in a roast score, that you could see a diagram and where the number lies on the, and it turns out that's a really difficult question. So lighting, like the studio lighting in here, if I hold my hand, you can see multiple shadows over them. And so those shadows play a part. And so having even lighting, that's a properly white balanced and amount of lux. So this sheet became the magic sauce, and that these boxes and squares all are analyzed by a lab grade scientific colorimeter in a L star, A star, B star values. So it's looking at every visible wavelength of color from your cell phone camera that sees from the RGB sensor 16 million different colors. It can actually take that photo and give a result. And it's been a 2-year development for what this just got released in Chicago a few weeks ago at the Specialty Coffee Association Expo.
Wow.
And I was alpha tester 00.
Wow.
Which it turns out is the first alpha tester.
That's cool.
So, okay, you mentioned all the coffees, all the different countries. Not once have you mentioned coffee from Alabama, right? So I'm just saying, is there nowhere in America where they grow coffee? Is it limited to certain climates that wouldn't permit it to be grown? I mean, could somebody grow coffee in America?
We got donated a coffee plant at the coffee center that's take really good care of it, and it will survive this far north of the equator. But coffee grows best in tropical climates, and so Hawaii is where you can grow coffee in the United States. The coffee plant that was donated to the coffee center was donated from a farm called Fringe, Frinj, and they're in Santa Barbara. And they had an avocado farm, and from the shade of the avocado trees, they started growing coffee plants. And it's the one place in the continental U.S. that's doing commercial production of coffee commercial production of coffee growing.
I mean, it just seems like it'd be some entrepreneurial, right?
I do not want to be responsible for coffee plants. So don't look at me on this
We're
one.
growing coffee on the
No.
top of the heart. I mean, look at that tile up there. I mean, it's like, I don't know who's going to harvest it, but we'll be. This is really interesting, Tim, because of what you have done and what you've become, right? It makes it easier to say. If I ask Tim about this aspect of coffee, he probably knows. And so, I'm just thinking, how many know a curator? How many people? How many even know we have a curator lives in Yuba City or Marysville in your case? I mean, do we? Because we wouldn't think of that, right? We wouldn't think it's like, well, I mean, you should have like a dial-up thing where you can, hit a button.
Coffee hours.
Yeah, and Tim goes, yeah, I'll answer. Tim answers the curator on the Q. Come on
Yes.
93Q answers your coffee questions. I mean,
it is difficult to describe just how obsessive I've been about coffee for a long time.
well, you're still married, so obviously you weren't so obsessed that she
got
said,
some balance.
I am out of here,
And Jennifer, she is not a coffee aficionado. If I make her a cup of coffee, she's like, okay, I enjoyed that.
I just thought about this. Your wife is a bean counter.
She is a bean counter.
She's a bean counter. And
Yes.
you are like a bean roaster.
Oh,
You guys-
I count the beans.
I really meant that from an accounting perspective. And she does, but that's funny.
Yes.
That's funny.
Thankfully, she is incredibly gifted at her job.
Yeah.
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 Just, for us being a part of this community, we just want to do our part well. Like even thinking about the coffee community in our community. I love Trent Foch so much.
Yeah.
He's such a dear friend, and I am so happy and excited for Remnant Coffee and the success that they are having. Well deserved. They are also sourcing fantastic coffees and helping the producers. But I also know that they want to provide a better cup. And to me, a better cup is not just one that tastes better, but a more responsible cup. And I really respect what he's doing.
Early on, when I first had you on, you actually bought a grinder, and we were on live radio, and you could hear, right?
That's good radio.
It was good radio. And then you brought another guy locally that makes coffee, and you guys were together. And you came, I don't know if you coined the phrase, but you were both in the same business. You said, we're frenemies.
Yeah.
We're frenemies, right? Because we're both in the same business. And honestly, there is, I'm pleasantly surprised that besides the corporate coffee entities that you see, that we have private ones, and they're doing well, right? It's like I love that there is a difference, between the corporate and the private, and it's just. To me, I'm thrilled with that. I was actually, I'll tell a quick story. I was in Costa Rica and going up through the rainforest. And this this pastor was telling me that he said, there's a coffee company in the United States that claims they're saving the rainforest, right? And I said, yeah, I've heard of that. And so he pulled over and he said, that's the rainforest. How far in there can you see? And I said, maybe 10 feet. I mean, it's that thick. And he said, if they didn't keep these roads clear in less than a year, the rainforest would take this road over. He said, nobody's saving the rainforest. They're fine. And I was like, wow, that was like a shocker, right? But the number of coffee roasters that we met and people, Costa Rica, I mean, that's like their biggest export, I think, is coffee. And you were talking about next to oil, that's the thing. And there's just coffee plantations everywhere, right? And so, I'm thinking, well, somebody has figured it out that certain coffees from certain areas, if that's the one you like, right? And so I wouldn't buy the coffee to save the rainforest. I'm just saying that's not going to be my goal. I want to be responsible, but I got to see it firsthand. And again, it goes back to it is taste. It is what you like. But having someone like you around that can define how could you really go deeper? I hope you realize this. You're really an anomaly here. We don't, there's nobody else doing that. So go on the bridge, and I'm not discounting other people that have the businesses. But what you do, I didn't know. Like Kelly and I were sitting there. What do you call Tim?
Totally.
What is that called? What is a guy? It's like a sommelier, but what is that, right? Yeah. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out it's a curator.
That's right.
I'm telling you, couldn't have fit better.
I know. We didn't know that. We didn't plan that, Tim. We didn't do that. So this is really a lifelong goal. But now that you achieved that, there's so much more, isn't there?
Yeah, for certain. That I have for the rest of my life opportunity to learn more and more about it. I won't know it all, and that as I've gotten to meet people and do some really special things in my lifetime, I just look forward to whatever that next opportunity in coffee will be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. I got a lot to think about with this. It's like we're gonna have to work this out. We'll have Tim back on a day that somebody, if we can find somebody that bakes bread or makes scones.
There might be somebody in there.
Yeah, if we can find somebody that could do that.
Big ones, apparently. Big scones.
Bear River.
Yeah, let's do that.
Bear Creek.
That's the next phase is when you grow and goes from a creek to a river.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's Bear Ocean Bakery.
It'll be
Bear
Bear River. Yeah. As long as we're not going backwards.
I do think that from an artisanal craft, specialty foods, that the folks in our communities all have a very special place of bringing awareness to the value chain and the quality of the ingredients. And to me, it is the thing that is teaching our communities about what real sustainability is. Not just a buzzword, not just greenwashing, saving the rainforest. That what is sustainable is our life's appreciation of the things that we take for granted in our life.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think sometimes when things are propagated like this was a selling point for that coffee company. We're saving the rainforest. I don't think it had anything to do with actually saving the rainforest. And so when we talk about those things, I tell people I can't do anything about what Washington, D.C. is doing. I can't do anything about Sacramento. But I look down where my feet are and I can make a difference here. And Tim, I feel like that has definitely been part of your calling. You've made a significant difference, and you're going to continue to do that because you care. You generally care about people, and we're all going to be. I'm going to feel guilty tomorrow when I go through the drive-through. That's all I can tell you.
Just get on his order subscription, and you could have.
Yeah, I need to get the subscription, get a little, French press going up here, so I can enjoy this instead of what I've been drinking. It'd be nice to enjoy the cup of coffee and just. Yeah. I'm trying to get rid of brain fog and wake up. Right? It'd be really.
I can understand both.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, I can't tell you thanks enough for coming in.
It's my honor.
When Kelly and I talked about guests and she had brought you up, I thought, gosh, I've interviewed Tim a couple times, but a lot of things have changed in your life since the last time that we had talked. And so I was kind of excited about it. And I said, this is going to be fun. Tim's going to be fun. But man, when I found out you're a curator, it just changed my whole world.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
So like I said, I would like to resurrect the Tuesday tastings. Tuesday tastings at 2, Tuesday tastings at 10. I definitely want to share that kind of knowledge and experience with the community, and happy to do that. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
The next time we do it, we're going to do it with bread and coffee. Listen, we're going to take a break. We'll be back. Well, I wish I could tell you we'd be back with the bread. We got the coffee. We're good. I want to thank Tim
Styczenski,
for coming in one more time. Want to thank him for what he does in the community. I love his heart towards other roasters, and he's helped them and worked with them. I appreciate his knowledge that he is so willing to share with others. I hope he does bring the Tuesday tastings back. And if you've never been in a coffee class, you're in for an incredible experience. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, my name is Denise Landis, and I am the owner of Edible Memories Bakery here on 3rd Street in downtown Marysville. We facilitated the market every Thursday on 3rd. We have food trucks, vendors, and live music every Thursday from 3 to 7:30 here on the corner of 3rd and D Street in downtown historic Marysville. Our vision was to bring an atmosphere of community, and that takes you coming out and joining in the fun with us. We hope to see you here.
welcome back. We just had Tim Styczynski on, and man, I am just like, you get somebody that loves what they're talking about and has a passion for it. I mean, I knew there was a lot to know about coffee, but Tim just, his passion for the coffee world, and you could geek out on it for hours, I'm sure.
Well, and when he starts getting into detail and the scientific stuff, my eyes glaze over, and I needed the coffee, right? Because it's like, that's so deep.
It's so, it really is like the science behind it.
And then he said, and I'm going to learn more, and he's excited about it. Yeah. To me, that's kind of the deal. I may not be that deep and understand the nuances and the details and all that, but here's a guy that not only is currently geeking on it, but will be geeking on it for years. Yeah. He loves what he does. He loves people. Yeah. So what he does ends up with us getting, I don't want to oversimplify, but we end up getting a great cup of coffee because of his labor. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think that's.
Yeah. I think you get, I had, I think it was a fire captain one time tell me that, if you are not learning and eager to learn new things in your job, then it's time to retire. And I don't know that Tim will ever retire.
Never.
I feel like he is gonna be coffeeing.
He is gonna end up, mark my words, this guy is gonna end up inventing something that has to do with coffee that's gonna change things. There is always that side, because he talked about sustainability, not wasting, all that in the middle of his interest in coffee. Yeah. Now let's blend those together. Yeah. Let's blend it.
Well, and I think blend. I think he has such a passion for communities around coffee that not just our community but other communities, that you figure out a way for him to blend that even more so than he's already doing. And I mean, you're
he should have
change
with his the firehouse. You should have left the pole in and had a second floor. People would literally drink enough coffee, they'd slide up the pole.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah.
It was a special, you get an award.
Why they took it out. Yeah.
you get an award if you're at that level. Totally. Anyway, that was really great. So are you thinking, like I'm thinking, who are we going to have next week?
I am already like, to have, great guests 2 weeks in a row, I feel like we're already setting the bar really high. But I'm excited for who we end up having on next.
Well, if you're out there and you have a suggestion, somebody that you'd like Kelly and I to have a chat with, right? Please have it be somebody that brings bread or coffee or.
Now we require snacks or beverages, so, new thing.
Hey, I'll dial in on Cheetos. Bring the Frito-Lay guy. We're good, right? But anyway, want to thank you guys for watching. We appreciate that, and we love doing this because we love the community. We want to bring them in here, put them in the tank where we can actually get a little bit more detailed than, just a quick interview says, what do you do in life? We really get to touch on the why do you do it?
Yeah, who's the person behind it?
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see you next week on In the Tank with Fish and Kelly.